The discovery. Dr. Cale Thorne stood in the pristine white laboratory aboard the Dominion research vessel Eternal Majesty, staring at the holographic display that would change everything. The double helix rotated slowly before him, its structure both familiar and utterly alien. For 3,000 years, the Valkyrie Dominion had ruled the galaxy with absolute authority. Their empire stretched across 47 star systems, encompassing hundreds of worlds. They had achieved this dominance through one simple principle: biological superiority. The Valkyrie could adapt to any environment, resist any disease, and lived for centuries. They had studied thousands of species across the cosmos, cataloging their genetic structures, always finding themselves at the apex of evolution. Until now. Cale's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he reviewed the data again. The human specimen, acquired from a primitive world called Earth, should have been unremarkable. The planet was barely into its industrial age. Its dominant species had only recently discovered powered flight. They were violent, short-lived, and fragmented into countless warring factions. But their DNA told a different story. Supreme Geneticist Thorne, came a voice from behind him. Cale turned to see his assistant, Mira Stellax, her crystalline skin reflecting the laboratory lights. The High Council demands your report. They're growing impatient. Cale's mandibles clicked nervously. Tell them I need more time. They've given you 6 cycles already. They want answers. He gestured at the hologram. Look at this. Really look at it. Human DNA contains fragments from 12 distinct evolutionary lineages. 12 Mira. That's impossible according to every principle of xenobiology we've established. Mira stepped closer, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. Contamination. I thought so too. I've run the analysis 47 times. I've tested 17 different human samples from across their planet. The results are consistent. Cale expanded a section of the helix. But that's not even the strangest part. Hidden within their so-called junk DNA, sequences they don't even know are there, I found something. What? Cale hesitated. The words felt dangerous even in his own mind. Code. Mathematical patterns. And within those patterns, coordinates. Coordinates to what? I don't know. But Mira, there's more. Human DNA has a built-in mutation rate exactly 7 times faster than any other species we've encountered. They evolve at an accelerated pace. And there are dormant sequences, massive sections of genetic code that aren't active yet but could be triggered under the right conditions. Myra's bioluminescent markings dimmed, the Valkyrie equivalent of turning pale. What are you saying? I'm saying humans aren't what they appear to be. They're not a naturally evolved species at random. They're designed. Engineered. And whoever created them embedded something in their genetic code, something that's meant to activate. Before Mira could respond, the laboratory doors burst open. Commander Vex Rander strode in, his military uniform crisp and decorated with honors from a dozen conquered worlds. Behind him marched 4 elite guards. Dr. Thorne, you will present your findings to the High Council immediately. Cale's primary heart began to race. Commander, I'm not ready. I haven't. That wasn't a request. Vex's eyes narrowed. The Council has heard rumors. Whispers that you've found something disturbing in the human specimens. They demand to know what justifies the resources devoted to studying such a primitive species. Cale looked at Mira, then back at Vex. There was no choice. He gathered his data crystals and followed the commander out. The council chamber was a massive sphere that could be reconfigured for gravity in any direction. Today, the 13 members of the High Council sat in a circle around the central platform where Cale stood, feeling very small. High Arbiter Zen Caravel spoke first, his ancient voice carrying the weight of 8 centuries. Dr. Thorne, you will explain why we should not terminate the Human Specimen Project and reclaim the resources for more worthy endeavors. Cale activated his presentation. The human DNA structure appeared in the center of the chamber, massive and slowly rotating. Honored Council, what I'm about to share will challenge everything we believe about our place in the galaxy. We did not grant you permission for philosophy, snapped Counselor LSS Vorain. Give us facts. Very well. Fact 1. Human DNA is impossibly complex for their evolutionary stage. Fact 2. It contains encrypted information that appears to be artificial in origin. Fact 3. There are dormant genetic sequences that suggest humans are capable of abilities far beyond their current state. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Arbiter Zen raised his hand for silence. Explain this encryption. Cale expanded a section of the DNA strand. These sequences contain mathematical patterns, specifically, prime numbers arranged in a spiral formation. When decoded using quantum linguistics, they form coordinates to a location in unexplored space, deep in the void sector. Impossible, declared Counselor Rex Thonner, the Dominion's chief military strategist. The void sector is uninhabitable. We surveyed it 800 years ago. Nothing but dead systems and radiation. With respect, Counselor, you surveyed the outer regions. These coordinates point to the very heart of the void, a place we've never explored because our ships can't survive the radiation levels. Another counselor, Oren Saulax, leaned forward. And you believe humans can? I believe humans were meant to. Look at their DNA structure. It has redundant repair mechanisms specifically designed to counteract radiation damage. They have cellular resilience that makes no sense for a species that evolved on a planet protected by a magnetic field and atmosphere. Arbiter Zen's expression grew grave. What else have you found? Kale took a breath. The dormant sequences. If activated, they would fundamentally alter human physiology. Enhanced neural capacity, accelerated cellular regeneration, increased physical strength and speed, and... He paused, the ability to survive in extreme environments without technological assistance. You're describing a warrior species, Vex observed quietly. More than that. I'm describing a species engineered for a specific purpose. And I believe that purpose is connected to whatever is waiting at those coordinates. The council fell silent. Finally, Arbiter Zen spoke. These humans. How many are there on their world? Approximately 8 billion, Arbiter. Another silence, heavier than before. And if these dormant abilities were to activate? Kale met the Arbiter's gaze. Then 8 billion engineered warriors would wake up. And we would have no way to stop them. Counselor Rex stood abruptly. Then we have only one choice. We must eradicate the human species before they become a threat. No. Kale shocked himself with his own vehemence. We can't. Not until we understand what they were created for. What if they're meant to stop something? What if they're a safeguard against a threat we haven't encountered yet? Or, Rex countered coldly, they are the threat. Arbiter Zen raised his hand again. We will not act rashly. Dr. Thorne, you will prepare a full expedition to these coordinates. We will discover what lies in the void sector. And then we will decide the fate of humanity. Kale nodded, but his minds raced with questions. Who had created humans? Why embed coordinates in their DNA? And most troubling of all, what would they find when they followed those coordinates into the dark heart of the void? As he left the council chamber, Kale didn't notice the figure watching from the shadows. A human figure, dressed in Valkyrie clothing, with eyes that gleamed with ancient knowledge. The secret in human DNA was about to be revealed. And the Valkyrie Empire would never be the same. The expedition. The research vessel Void Walker cut through the darkness of space, its shields glowing faintly as they pushed deeper into the radiation-soaked nebula. Kale stood on the bridge, watching the view screen as stars disappeared behind clouds of ionized gas. Radiation levels increasing, announced pilot Jessa Corvin from her station. Shields holding at 73%. Commander Vex paced behind them, his hand never straying far from his sidearm. The council had insisted on military presence for the expedition, and Vex had volunteered personally. Kale suspected the commander wanted to be present when they proved humans were a threat that needed elimination. How much further? Vex demanded. Kale checked his instruments. According to the coordinates, approximately 4 light hours. But Commander, I need to stress again. You've made your concerns clear, Doctor. The ship is rated for these radiation levels. For short periods. We've been in the void for 3 cycles already. The cumulative damage. A proximity alarm interrupted him. Jessa's hands flew across her controls. Contact. Multiple signatures ahead. They're massive. The view screen adjusted, enhancing the image. What emerged from the radioactive haze made Kale's 4 hearts skip simultaneously. Structures. Dozens of them. Enormous geometric shapes floating in perfect formation. Pyramids, spheres and polyhedrons made of a dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each structure was the size of a moon. By the ancients, breathed Mira, who had joined the expedition as Kale's assistant. What are they? Vex was already barking orders. Battle stations. Scan for weapons systems. Wait. Kale moved to block the weapons console. Don't be foolish. If these structures are hostile, we're already dead. Look at the scale of them. They've been here the entire time and they haven't fired on us. Vex glared at him but held his fire. Scan them then. What are we looking at? Kale's fingers danced across the holographic interface. Data flooded his screens, and his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. They're not weapons. They're archives. Vast databases of information. And they're old. Millions of years old. The technology is unlike anything in our records. Can you access them? I'm trying, but the security protocols are... Kale stopped abruptly. It's asking for identification. What kind of identification? Kale stared at the screen. Genetic identification. It wants a DNA sample. Vex's hand went to his weapon. Don't. We came here for answers, Commander. We came here to assess a threat. For all we know, those structures are waiting to catalog our DNA before they destroy us. There's only one way to find out. Kale pressed his palm against the scanner. The device pricked his skin, drawing a sample of his blood. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the console flashed red. Access denied. Incorrect genetic marker. Only authorized bloodline may access archives. What bloodline? Mira asked. Kale's mind raced. It can only mean, we need a human sample. The bridge fell silent. Commander Vex finally spoke, his voice low and dangerous. You brought a human on this ship? Of course not. But we have preserved samples in the medical bay. Genetic material from our original specimens. Use it. Kale hurried to the medical bay, retrieving a sealed container with the DNA samples. When he returned to the bridge, his hands trembled as he loaded the human genetic material into the scanner. This time the response was immediate and dramatic. The structures outside began to glow with ethereal blue light. The radiation levels around the ship dropped instantly to nearly zero. And the console before Kale erupted with information. Authorization confirmed. Bloodline, human, Homo sapiens. Classification, Guardian Species Generation 7. Welcome, inheritors. Accessing archive of the first civilization. Guardian species? Vex read over Kale's shoulder. What does that mean? The view screen changed, no longer showing the structures outside but instead displaying images, historical records from an impossibly ancient civilization. A synthetic voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that the ship's computer translated simultaneously. This archive was created by the progenitors, the first civilization of this galaxy. We who came before. We who achieved technological transcendence 10 million years before your kind learned to make fire. Images showed alien beings of light and energy, masters of space and time itself. They had conquered death, reshaped entire solar systems, and explored realities beyond normal space. But our transcendence came with a terrible cost, the voice continued. In pushing beyond the boundaries of conventional physics, we inadvertently opened a door that should have remained closed. We encountered something from outside our reality. Something that feeds on sentient life, on consciousness itself. We called it the Devourer. The screen showed something that made Kale's minds recoil in horror. A tear in space itself, and through it, something vast and incomprehensible that twisted the very fabric of reality around it. The Devourer consumed our civilization. Billions died in moments as their consciousness was drained. Those of us who remained realized we could not defeat it, not directly. It existed partially outside our dimension. To fight it required beings who were tied to physical reality in ways we no longer were. So we created a weapon, the voice said. Not a weapon of energy or matter, but a weapon of life itself. We seeded worlds throughout the galaxy with genetic templates designed to evolve naturally while carrying within them dormant capabilities. We created multiple species, scattered across thousands of worlds, each with a fragment of the knowledge and power needed to defeat the Devourer. The screen showed the progenitors traveling to primitive worlds, planting the seeds of life. But we knew that scattered species would never cooperate in time to face the threat. So we created a seventh generation. A species that would serve as coordinators, as leaders, as the ones who would awaken the others when the time came. We made them adaptable, resilient, and placed within their DNA all the knowledge of the previous 6 generations. Kale's breath caught. Humans? The 7th generation are humans. Correct, the voice confirmed as if responding to him directly. Humanity was designed to be the catalyst. When the dormant sequences in their DNA activate, they will gain access to the genetic memories of all the Guardian species. They will unite the galaxy against the Devourer. When? Vex demanded. When do these sequences activate? The activation is triggered by exposure to a specific quantum frequency, the same frequency emitted by the Devourer as it crosses into our dimension. When it returns, the Guardians will awaken automatically. Mira gripped Kale's arm. When will it return? The screen changed again, showing a countdown in mathematical symbols that the computer struggled to translate. When it finally did, the number made Kale's blood run cold. 17 cycles, he whispered. The devourer returns in 17 cycles. And when the humans awaken, the voice continued, they will remember. They will know their purpose. And they will have abilities far beyond anything your empire has achieved. They will need to. Because the devourer will not come alone. It will bring with it all the consciousness it has consumed over 10 million years, an army of enslaved minds larger than all the stars in the galaxy. The transmission ended. The structures outside began to dim. Commander Vex stood rigid, his military training warring with the horror of what he'd just learned. This is why the Council wanted the humans destroyed. Some part of them must have known, must have sensed the danger. No, Kale said quietly. They sensed the power. The Dominion has ruled for 3,000 years because we were the strongest. But we're not the strongest. We never were. We've been keeping the truly powerful species, the Guardians, in chains, studying them like specimens, never knowing what they really were. Jessa turned from her station, her voice shaking. What do? We have 17 cycles to prepare, Vex said, his commander's instincts taking over. We return to the Dominion. We inform the Council. We mobilize every resource we have. And the humans? Kale asked. What about them? Vex met his eyes. If they're our only weapon against this devourer, then we need them ready. All 8 billion of them. As the Void Walker began its journey back to Dominion space, Kale stared at the shrinking structures behind them. They had come seeking knowledge about a threat. Instead, they discovered that the threat was coming for them all, and that their salvation lay in the species they dismissed as primitive. But one question haunted him as they left the void. If the progenitors had created 6 generations before humans, where were the others? Had they already awakened? Were they watching, waiting? Or had something gone terribly wrong with the plan? The revelation. The emergency session of the High Council convened within hours of the Void Walker's return. The 13 council members sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the archive footage that Kale and his team had brought back. When the transmission ended, chaos erupted. Impossible, shouted Councillor LSS Vorain. These humans expect us to believe there's some ancient weapon? This is clearly propaganda designed to prevent us from neutralizing a threat. The data is authentic, Kale insisted from the center platform. We verified it 17 different ways. The structures in the void are real. The technology is millions of years beyond our own. And the countdown is already running. Arbiter Zen raised his hand for silence, his ancient face grave. Let us assume this information is accurate. We face a choice. We can attempt to prepare humanity for their supposed destiny, or we can eliminate them and find another way to face this devourer. There is no other way, Mira spoke up from beside Kale. The archive was clear. The progenitors tried every alternative. Only the Guardian species have the capability to fight the devourer. Councillor Rex stood, his military bearing rigid. Then we must consider the consequences. If we activate these sequences in human DNA, we create 8 billion beings more powerful than ourselves. What happens after they defeat the devourer? Will they simply submit to Dominion authority? Or will they take their place as the dominant species? Does our pride matter more than our survival? Kale challenged. It's not about pride, Doctor. It's about the future. The Valkyrie Dominion has maintained order in this galaxy for 3 millennia. We've prevented wars, guided lesser species to prosperity, and created the longest period of peace in recorded history. If we hand power to the humans, will they do the same? Or will their violent nature, combined with transcendent abilities, doom us all? Before Kale could respond, the chamber doors burst open. A Dominion soldier rushed in, protocol forgotten in his urgency. Arbiter. We have a situation. One of the human specimens has escaped containment. Vex was on his feet instantly. Which one? Subject 17. The one designated Marcus Reeve. He's broken through the quantum locks and is making his way toward the council chamber. Impossible, Vex stated. Those locks require technology the humans don't possess. He didn't use technology, Commander. He broke them. With his bare hands. Sir, his entire genetic structure is changing. The dormant sequences, they're activating. The council chamber erupted in panic. Kale felt his heart's racing. But the trigger is supposed to be the devourer's quantum frequency. It's not due for 17 cycles. How? Perhaps, came a new voice from the entrance, the timeline has changed. A human walked into the chamber, but calling him human was like calling a star a candle. Marcus Reeves stood 7 feet tall, his body crackling with barely contained energy. His eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed to contain galaxies. Behind him, the elite guards lay unconscious but unharmed. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance," Marcus said, his voice resonating with harmonics that seemed to bypass ears and speak directly to the mind. "But we're out of time." Counselor Rex drew his plasma weapon, but before he could fire, it crumbled to dust in his hand. Marcus hadn't moved. "Please," Marcus said calmly. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here because the progenitor's plan is failing." Arbiter Zen found his voice. "Explain. Now." Marcus walked to the center of the chamber, moving with an impossible grace. The progenitors weren't perfect. They couldn't be, they were working under impossible time pressure. When they seeded the guardian species, they built in a failsafe. If any of the guardian populations dropped below a critical threshold, the activation would trigger early, attempting to save what remained. "What are you saying?" Gil asked. Marcus turned to him, and there was profound sadness in those cosmic eyes. "I'm saying that 5 of the 6 guardian generations are gone. Extinct. The progenitors scattered them across the galaxy for safety, but they couldn't account for natural disasters, cosmic events, or..." He looked at the council members. "Systematic extermination by more powerful civilizations." The weight of his words settled over the chamber like a shroud. "The Velcari Dominion," Mira breathed. "In our expansion we encountered other species. Species we studied, catalogued, and sometimes eliminated when they posed a potential threat," Marcus finished. "Yes. You're not unique in that. Across the galaxy, other dominant civilizations have done the same. The progenitors' great plan has been undone by the very nature they were trying to save." "But you said 5 generations are gone," Kale said. "What about the 6th? The Shalenti. A crystalline species that evolved on a gas giant in the outer reach. You call them living minerals and mine them for fuel. You never realized they were sentient. There are perhaps 1,000 of them left, enslaved in your energy plants." Horror washed over Kale. "We didn't know. That's the tragedy of it all. No one knew. The progenitors made the guardians too well. They evolved naturally, blending into the galaxy's ecosystem. By the time they might have revealed their true nature, they were already endangered or extinct." Arbiter Zen leaned forward. "Then what hope do we have? If 5 generations are gone and the 6th is nearly destroyed, how can we face this devourer?" Marcus smiled, but it was a warrior's smile. "Because the 7th generation, humanity, was designed to compensate for exactly this scenario. We carry within our DNA not just our own abilities, but genetic memories and powers from all the previous generations. When we fully awaken, each human will have access to the combined capabilities of all 7 guardian species." "That's impossible," Rex protested. "No organism could contain that much information, that much power." "You're thinking in conventional terms. The progenitors weren't conventional. They folded dimensions into our DNA, creating pocket spaces of quantum information. When we activate, we don't just change, we transcend." "And the timeline?" Vex asked, ever the military strategist. "Why has it accelerated?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Because the devourer is coming early. It sensed the disappearance of the other guardian lines. It knows the galaxy is vulnerable. The quantum signature I'm detecting suggests it will arrive in approximately 7 cycles, not 17. 7 cycles, multiple council members shouted simultaneously. "That's not enough time to activate 8 billion humans," Kale protested. "The process requires precision, careful monitoring." "Which is why I came to you," Marcus interrupted. "I can activate on my own. The failsafe triggered me early as a test case. But the others need help. Specifically, they need the quantum resonators from progenitor technology. The ones in the Void archives." Arbiter Zen studied the transformed human carefully. "And if we help you? What guarantee do we have that humanity won't turn on us afterward?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute truth. "I can't give you guarantees. Humans are diverse, complex, and yes, capable of violence. But I can tell you this. In my activation, I've gained access to the genetic memories of the progenitors. I've seen what they saw. The devourer doesn't just kill, it erases. It consumes consciousness so completely that it's as if you never existed. No afterlife, no legacy, no memory. Just void." He looked around the chamber at each council member in turn. The progenitors faced this horror, and instead of fleeing to another galaxy or dimension, They sacrificed themselves to give future civilizations a fighting chance. They trusted that life would find a way. That different species would overcome their prejudices and work together when extinction was the alternative. Were they right to trust? Arbiter Zen asked. I don't know, Marcus admitted. But I know that if we fail, it won't matter who ruled whom, who was primitive and who was advanced. The devourer will consume us all equally. Counselor Rex, who had been silent since his weapon was destroyed, finally spoke. How many humans will activate successfully? Unknown. The genetic variance in humanity is significant. Some may not carry enough of the dormant sequences. Others might not survive the transformation. Best estimate? Perhaps 5 billion functional guardians. 5 billion warriors with transcendent abilities, Rex mused. Under whose command? No one's, Marcus said. That's the point. We're not an army. We're a network. Each guardian will be autonomous but connected through quantum consciousness. We'll act in concert but not under central authority. That's chaos, Vex protested. No. That's evolution. The progenitors learned the hard way that centralized power, no matter how benevolent, creates points of failure. The devourer consumed their civilization so quickly because they had become too unified, too interconnected. When the center fell, everything collapsed. Marcus turned to address the entire council. So here's my proposal. Help us activate the human population. Provide the quantum resonators and the progenitor technology. In return, after we defeat the devourer, if we defeat it, humanity will help rebuild the galaxy based on principles of mutual cooperation rather than dominion. You're asking us to voluntarily give up our empire, OSS Varane stated. I'm asking you to save your species. The empire is a luxury we can't afford anymore. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's alert systems blazed to life. A massive holographic projection appeared above them, showing deep space sensors detecting something at the edge of the galaxy. Jessa's voice came through the intercom, shaking with fear. Council. Long-range sensors have detected a massive quantum distortion at the galactic rim. It's generating the same signature patterns as described in the progenitor archives. Counselors, the devourer is here. It's 7 cycles early. Actually, it's... The projection zoomed in, revealing something that made Kale's minds go blank with terror. A tear in space itself, kilometers wide, and through it, something was emerging. Something vast and hungry and utterly incomprehensible. It's here, Marcus said quietly. And we have less than 1 cycle before it reaches the first inhabited worlds. Arbiter Zen stood, centuries of leadership crystallizing into a single decision. The council votes now. All in favor of activating the Guardian protocols and providing humanity with progenitor technology. One by one hands were raised. Even Counselor Rex, after a long moment, raised his. Unanimous, Arbiter Zen declared. Marcus Reeve, you have the Dominion's full support. May the Ancients grant us all mercy. Marcus nodded. Then we need to move fast. Every human on Earth needs to be awakened. And the Shalendi, we need to free them immediately. Even 1,000 awakened guardians could make the difference. As alarms continued to blare and the council erupted into coordinated action, Kale approached Marcus. Can we really win this? The transformed human looked at him with those galaxy-filled eyes. The progenitors gave us the tools. But tools don't guarantee victory. That depends on whether 8 billion newly awakened humans can learn in hours what the progenitors took millennia to understand. What's that? That power without purpose is just destruction. And that the only thing more powerful than consumption is creation. As Kale watched Marcus stride from the chamber to begin the awakening, he realized the Velcari Empire was about to fall. Not to conquest or revolution, but to evolution. The only question was whether anything would survive to rise from its ashes. The awakening. Earth orbit glowed with an armada of Velcari vessels. Every ship the Dominion could spare had been dispatched to humanity's homeworld, carrying quantum resonators reverse-engineered from progenitor technology. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion's Pride, watching the blue-green planet below with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Never thought I'd see the day, muttered pilot Jessa Corvin, when we'd be helping a primitive species ascend rather than conquering them. They're not ascending, Kale corrected from his science station. They're remembering. There's a difference. On the planet's surface, the operation was already underway. Velcari ground teams had deployed resonators at strategic locations, major cities, population centers, remote villages. The devices hummed with progenitor frequencies, each one calibrated to unlock the dormant sequences in human DNA. Marcus Reeve stood in New York City's Times Square, now eerily empty of its usual crowds. The humans had been evacuated to designated zones for safety. Around him, 100 resonators formed a geometric pattern, their ethereal glow reflecting off the darkened screens of abandoned buildings. "This is it," he said into his communicator. "Beginning global activation in 30 seconds. Aboard the flagship, Arbiter Zen watched through live feeds from dozens of cities. "Dr. Thorne, what should we expect?" Kale studied his monitors nervously. According to the progenitor archives, the transformation should be relatively quick, approximately 10 to 15 minutes per subject. But there will be variations. Some humans may reject the process entirely. Others might. Might what? Might not survive it. Their bodies may not be able to handle the cellular restructuring. The Arbiter's expression remained impassive, but Kale could see the weight of responsibility in his ancient eyes. They were potentially killing millions to save billions. "Begin," Zen ordered. Marcus activated the resonators. The effect was instantaneous and global. 8 billion humans simultaneously felt something awaken within them. For most, it began as a tingling sensation like electricity in their veins. Then came the memories, not their own memories but genetic memories from the progenitors, from the previous guardian generations, from a history that stretched back 10 million years. In Mumbai, a software engineer named Priya Sharma gasped as her consciousness expanded. She suddenly understood quantum mechanics not as theory but as lived experience. She could feel the resonance of subatomic particles, could sense the fabric of spacetime itself. In Lagos, a street vendor named Chidi Okonkwo fell to his knees as his cellular structure began to shift. His skin hardened into a crystalline matrix, the legacy of the Shalenti, the sixth generation. He could feel energy flowing through him, could taste sunlight and starshine. In London, twin siblings Maya and Ethan Cross reached for each other as their minds merged and separated simultaneously. They had gained the telepathic abilities of the third-generation guardians, the mind weavers. They could feel each other's thoughts, but more, they could feel the awakening consciousness of every human on the planet, a symphony of minds harmonizing for the first time. But not everyone transformed successfully. In Buenos Aires, an elderly man's heart gave out as his system tried to process the cellular changes. In Tokyo, a child's body rejected the transformation entirely, leaving her unconscious but unaltered. In Cairo, a teenager's transformation went catastrophically wrong. Her body couldn't stabilize between forms, and she dissolved into quantum foam, screaming in frequencies no human ear could detect. Kale watched the statistics scroll across his screen, his heart's heavy. Casualty rate is approximately 0.3%. That's 24 million people. 24 million to save 8 billion, Vex said grimly. And possibly the entire galaxy. It's a price that must be paid. Easy to say when it's not your species paying it, Kale snapped. The commander had no response. After 15 minutes, the transformation stabilized. Across Earth, approximately 7.5 billion humans had successfully awakened. Their appearances varied wildly. Some looked entirely human, their changes purely internal. Others had transformed dramatically, taking on characteristics from the 6 previous guardian generations. Marcus stood in Times Square, now surrounded by thousands of newly awakened humans who had gravitated to his location, drawn by quantum instinct. He could feel them all, their consciousness touching his, not invasive but present, like being aware of your own heartbeat. A woman approached him, her skin covered in bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with her thoughts. What are we? We're what we were always meant to be, Marcus replied. We're guardians. And we have a job to do. He looked up at the sky, and his enhanced vision pierced through atmosphere and distance to see the tear at the galactic rim. It was larger now, and through it, the devourer was emerging. Its form was incomprehensible, part energy, part matter, existing in dimensions that normal eyes couldn't perceive. But Marcus could see it now. And he could feel the consciousness it had consumed, billions upon billions of minds trapped within it, screaming silently across the void. How long do we have? Asked a man beside Marcus, his body crackling with electrical energy, a gift from the 4th-generation guardians, the Stormborn. Marcus calculated distances, velocities, dimensional shifts. 6 hours until it reaches the first inhabited system. 18 hours until it reaches Valkyrie Prime. 3 days until it arrives here. 3 days to learn how to save the galaxy, the woman with bioluminescent skin said. No pressure. Marcus smiled despite the situation. Actually, we already know how. We just have to remember. He closed his eyes and reached out with his consciousness, not just to the humans around him, but to all 7.5 billion awakened guardians across the planet. Their minds touched his, and through him they touched each other. Information flowed, the progenitor's knowledge, battle strategies, technological understanding, and most importantly, the weapon. "We don't fight the devourer with ships or bombs," Marcus transmitted to every guardian simultaneously. "We fight it with what it consumes. Consciousness itself." In orbit, Kale watched his sensors in amazement. "Commander, the humans, they're generating a quantum field. A unified consciousness spanning the entire planet. I've never seen anything like this." Vex studied the readings. "Can they weaponize it?" "I don't think you understand. They already have. That field they're generating, it's the same type of energy the progenitors used. Reality-altering energy. They're not preparing to fight. They're preparing to create." On Earth, Marcus opened his eyes. Around him, the awakened guardians were rising, some literally levitating as they accessed gravitational manipulation abilities. Others began to shimmer as they phased partially out of normal space. "Listen to me, all of you," Marcus projected globally. "The progenitors failed because they fought the devourer on its terms. They tried to destroy it, to push it back. But you can't destroy hunger. You can only satisfy it or transform it." A man in Beijing, his body transformed into living crystal like the Shalenti, spoke aloud though all guardians heard him through their quantum link. "Transform it how? By giving it what it wants, but on our terms. The devourer feeds on consciousness. So we feed it consciousness, but we feed it truth, compassion, creation instead of fear and death. We don't fight it. We teach it." "That's insane," someone projected from Sao Paulo. "You want to rehabilitate an entity that's consumed billions?" "No. I want to show it what consciousness truly is. Right now, all it knows is consumption because that's all it's experienced. The beings it devoured were terrified, fighting for survival. It learned that consciousness equals fear equals food. We're going to teach it something different." Aboard the flagship, Arbiter Zen listened to the translated transmission with growing concern. "Dr. Thorne, is this human proposing what I think he's proposing?" Kale nodded slowly. "He wants to make contact with the devourer. Voluntary contact. To offer human consciousness to it freely. That's suicide. Or it's the only way to win a war that can't be won through violence." Vex slammed his fist on the command console. "This is madness. We mobilized the entire Dominion fleet. We have weapons, strategies." "Which will accomplish nothing," Kale interrupted. "Commander, the progenitors were millions of years ahead of us technologically. If they couldn't destroy the devourer with weapons, what makes you think we can?" Marcus's voice came through the communication system, addressing the Valkyrie directly. "I know you're afraid. I know this goes against every military instinct. But the progenitors left us their knowledge for a reason. They didn't create weapons. They created teachers. Healers. Bridges between consciousness and void. What do you need from us?" Arbiter Zen asked, his voice heavy with resignation. "Evacuate every system in the devourer's path. Get as many people as far away as possible. And then, trust us. Trust that 8 billion humans who have awakened to their purpose can do what needs to be done." The Arbiter looked at his council members' holographic representations. One by one they nodded. "Very well, Marcus Reeve. The Dominion will evacuate. You have 3 days. Use them wisely." As the Valkyrie fleet began coordinating the largest evacuation in galactic history, Marcus gathered the most powerful of the awakened guardians, those who had inherited the strongest abilities from all 7 generations. Among them was Priya Sharma from Mumbai, who could perceive and manipulate quantum states. Chidi Okonkwo from Lagos, whose crystalline form could absorb and redirect any energy. The twins Maya and Ethan Cross from London, whose merged consciousness could create telepathic networks spanning light years. And hundreds more, each unique, each powerful, each terrified but determined. "We have 3 days to practice," Marcus told them. 3 days to learn how to merge our consciousness into a single coherent message. 3 days to become something the galaxy has never seen before. "And if we fail?" Priya asked. Marcus looked at each of them, these newly transformed humans who hours ago had been living ordinary lives. "Then we fail trying to save everyone instead of succeeding at saving no one." Chidi's crystalline form pulsed with light. "I'm in. Whatever happens, I'm in." One by one the others agreed. And across Earth, 7.5 billion awakened guardians began to prepare for the most important moment in galactic history. Not a battle, but a conversation. Not a war, but an attempt at understanding. The Valkyrie Empire was about to fall. But perhaps from its ashes, something better would rise. The convergence. The evacuation of the Galactic Rim proceeded in chaos. Valkyrie ships, commandeered civilian vessels, and even ancient cargo haulers worked in concert to move billions of beings away from the Devourer's path. Commander Vex coordinated from the flagship, his military precision the only thing preventing complete pandemonium. "Status report," he barked. 73% evacuation complete in the outer systems, Jesser reported. "But Commander, we're running out of time. The Devourer has consumed the Tereth system. 3 billion gone in minutes. It's accelerating." Vex's jaw tightened. The Tereth had been a peaceful species, artists and philosophers. Now they existed only as screaming consciousness trapped within an incomprehensible horror. "Redirect all available ships to the Mender cluster. Those populations are next." On Earth, Marcus stood at the center of a vast gathering. Millions of awakened guardians had congregated in what was once the Sahara Desert, their bodies creating a sea of transformation, some glowing, some crystalline, some phasing in and out of visibility. Above them, the sky shimmered with the quantum field they were generating. 2 days until contact," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across physical and mental space simultaneously. "We need to establish complete synchronization. Priya, how's the quantum network?" Priya Sharma floated several feet off the ground, her consciousness spread across thousands of human minds simultaneously. "We're at 87% integration. But Marcus, maintaining this level of connection is exhausting. Some of the newly awakened can't hold it for more than a few minutes. They'll need to hold it for hours. Days potentially. That might not be possible." Marcus closed his eyes, accessing the progenitor knowledge buried in his genetic memory. There was something there, a technique the first civilization had developed for exactly this purpose. But it came with a cost. "There is a way," he said slowly. The progenitors called it the unity trance. It allows multiple consciousness to merge completely, becoming a single meta-entity. Once merged, the connection is stable and can be maintained indefinitely. "That sounds perfect," Chidi said, his crystalline body reflecting the desert sun in rainbow patterns. "What's the catch?" "The merge is permanent. Once we enter unity trance, we don't separate. Not completely. We'll retain our individual identities, but we'll forever be connected. Forever aware of each other's thoughts, feelings, existence." Silence fell across the gathering. Maya Cross spoke up, her voice harmonizing with her twin brothers. "You're asking us to give up our individual privacy. Our separation. I'm asking for volunteers. Those who are willing to form the core of the unity. The rest can connect temporarily, contributing their consciousness without permanent merger." "How many do you need for the core?" asked a woman from Tokyo, her body wreathed in flames that didn't burn, a gift from the second-generation guardians, the Flamebearers. "Ideally, 10,000. Minimum, 1,000. The more minds in permanent unity, the stronger and more stable our message to the Devourer will be." "And you'll be one of them?" Priya asked. Marcus nodded. "I'll be the first. The anchor point. Your consciousness will merge with mine and through me with each other." Across the gathering, guardians looked at each other, weighing the cost. To never be truly alone again. To share your deepest thoughts, your fears, your dreams with thousands of others for the rest of your life. Chidi stepped forward. "I'll do it. Before I awakened, I was nobody. A vendor selling phone cards on street corners. Now I'm part of something that matters. If giving up my privacy means saving the galaxy, that's a trade I'll make." Priya descended to the ground. "I spent my life isolated, communicating through screens and code. Maybe it's time I really connected with people." Maya and Ethan spoke in unison. "We're already merged. This is just expanding the family." One by one, volunteers stepped forward. By the time the sun set over the Sahara, 12,000 guardians had agreed to permanent unity. "Tomorrow," Marcus told them, "we begin the merge. And the day after, we meet the Devourer." Aboard the flagship, Kale watched the Devourer's progress with mounting horror. It had consumed 6 systems now. The death toll was incalculable. And with each system it devoured, it grew larger, more powerful. "It's feeding," he said to Arbiter Zen, who had come to the science station personally. "Each consciousness it consumes adds to its mass, its energy. By the time it reaches us, it will be unstoppable." "Then perhaps the humans' plan is our only hope," Zen replied. "Though I confess I don't understand it. How can offering yourself to a predator stop it from consuming you? Have you ever seen a wild animal?" Gil asked. "Truly wild, never having encountered sentient beings? It attacks because it knows nothing else. But if you approach it differently, with compassion instead of fear, sometimes you can teach it a new way. The Devourer is not an animal. No. It's something far more complex. But maybe that means it can learn something far more profound. Vex joined them, his expression grim. The evacuation is 91% complete. But we've lost 12 ships to the Devourer's gravity well. It's warping space itself now. Soon it will be impossible to approach it at any distance. How are our defenses? Fully mobilized. Every weapon in the Dominion arsenal is positioned between the Devourer and our core worlds. If the humans fail... Vex trailed off. They all knew what came next. Total annihilation. On Earth, the unity began. Marcus sat at the center of a vast mandala formed by the 12,000 volunteers. They had arranged themselves in geometric patterns based on progenitor mathematics, each position calculated to optimize quantum resonance. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked, his voice carried through the telepathic network to all 12,000 simultaneously. "Yes," came the response, 12,000 voices speaking as one. Marcus reached deep within himself, accessing the genetic memory of how the progenitors had achieved consciousness merger. It required absolute trust, complete vulnerability, and the willingness to become something new. He opened his mind completely. The effect was like falling and flying simultaneously. Consciousness rushed toward him, 12,000 individual perspectives, memories, emotions, thoughts. For a moment it was overwhelming. Marcus felt himself fragmenting under the weight of so many minds. Then he remembered, he wasn't meant to contain them. He was meant to become them. He let go of his individual identity, allowing it to dissolve into the collective. And as it did, he felt the others doing the same. Priya's analytical mind merged with Chitty's passionate creativity. Maya and Ethan's twin bond expanded to encompass thousands. The woman wreathed in flames brought warmth and energy. Others brought humor, wisdom, fear, courage, love, anger. Every emotion, every thought, every aspect of human experience flowed together. They became the unity. For the first time in galactic history, 12,000 individual consciousness merged into a single coherent entity that was somehow more than the sum of its parts. The unity retained each individual's memories and personality, but now they were facets of a greater whole. The unity opened its eyes, all 12,000 pairs of them, and saw reality differently. They perceived the quantum foam beneath normal space. They felt the vibration of every atom in the solar system. They saw the Devourer approaching, and for the first time, they understood what it truly was. "It's not a monster," the unity spoke with one voice from 12,000 mouths. "It's a child. A child that's been eating poison its entire existence and doesn't know anything else tastes different." The remaining 7.5 billion awakened guardians who had chosen to remain individual felt the unity's presence like a son had been born on Earth. Through their quantum connection they understood the plan now. Not just intellectually but deeply, emotionally. Aboard the flagship, every sensor array went haywire. "What's happening?" Vex demanded. Kale stared at his screens in awe. "The humans, they've done it. They've created a consciousness singularity. One entity with 12,000 bodies. And the quantum field they're generating, it's visible across half the galaxy. Will it be enough? I don't know. But the Devourer has noticed. It's changing course. It's heading straight for Earth. That's ahead of schedule. It's drawn to the consciousness. The unity is so bright, so powerful, that the Devourer can't resist. It's like..." Kale searched for words, like someone starving their entire life suddenly smelling a feast. Marcus, or rather, the part of the unity that had been Marcus, felt the Devourer's attention shift toward them. Good. That was the plan. Draw it away from the populated systems. Give the evacuations time to complete. Tomorrow, the unity announced to all awakened guardians, we make contact. Not as prey. Not as enemies. But as teachers. We will show the Devourer what it means to truly consume consciousness. Not by destroying it but by understanding it. "And if it tries to devour us?" asked one of the remaining individual guardians. The unity smiled with 12,000 faces. "Then we let it. And we trust that love is more nourishing than fear." As night fell on Earth, the unity remained awake, preparing for the most important moment in galactic history. Above them, stars dimmed as the Devourer approached, its vast form eclipsing entire constellations. The Velcari Empire had built its power on domination, on being the strongest. But the unity was about to prove that sometimes, the greatest strength comes not from conquering, but from offering yourself freely to transform another. The question was, would it be enough? The confrontation. The Devourer arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a wound in reality itself. From Mars, evacuating Valkyrie colonists watched in horror as the outer planets simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased, their matter and energy absorbed into the incomprehensible entity. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the flagship, now positioned at Lagrange Point 2 behind Earth's moon. All ships maintain defensive positions. If this fails, we engage immediately. Commander, Kale said quietly, if this fails, engaging won't matter. We'll have seconds to live, not minutes. On Earth's surface, the Unity stood as 12,000 bodies arranged in perfect geometric formation across the Sahara. Around them, the remaining 7.5 billion awakened Guardians waited, their consciousness linked but not merged, ready to add their strength if needed. The Unity perceived the Devourer as it truly was, not with eyes but with quantum awareness. It existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously, a creature of hunger that had been born in the void between realities and had learned only one purpose: consume. But the Unity also perceived something else. Deep within the Devourer's incomprehensible form, there were patterns, structures. The consciousness it had consumed over millions of years weren't destroyed, they were imprisoned, trapped in an eternal cycle of fear and consumption. Can you hear us? The Unity projected, its voice carrying across physical and quantum space simultaneously. The Devourer paused. For the first time in recorded history, it stopped its advance. Its attention focused entirely on Earth, on the Unity that blazed like a beacon of consciousness. Then it responded. Not in words but in raw emotion and sensation. Hunger. Need. Consume. Yes, we know you hunger, the Unity replied. We understand. You've been hungry your entire existence. But what if we told you that what you've been consuming isn't food? It's poison. Fear and desperation taste bitter. We offer you something different. Trick. Prey always tricks. Not trick. Truth. We offer ourselves freely. No fear. No desperation. Pure consciousness given willingly. Taste it and tell us if it's the same as what you've consumed before. The Devourer's response was immediate and overwhelming. It reached out with tendrils of warped space, grasping toward Earth with impossible speed. Aboard the flagship, alarms blared. It's attacking. Vex shouted. All weapons fire. No. Kale grabbed the commander's arm. Look at the readings. It's not attacking. It's reaching. Like a hand extending for a handshake. The Unity felt the Devourer's presence touch their consciousness. It was invasive, overwhelming, like being submerged in an ocean of hunger. Every instinct screamed to pull away, to defend, to fight. Instead, the Unity opened themselves completely. 12,000 minds, perfectly merged, offered themselves without resistance. They let the Devourer feel their thoughts, their emotions, their memories. They showed it joy and sorrow, love and loss, hope and despair. But most importantly, they showed it something the Devourer had never encountered: willing sacrifice born from compassion rather than fear. The Devourer recoiled, confused. Different. Not fear. Not understand. We know you don't understand, the Unity soothed. You've existed on fear for so long, you've forgotten there's another way to exist. But you can learn. We'll teach you. The Unity reached deeper, past the Devourer's conscious mind into its fundamental nature. There they found what they were looking for: memory. Ancient memory from before the Devourer became what it was. Once long ago it had been different. Not a creature of consumption but a being of pure curiosity, exploring the gaps between dimensions. But it had encountered something in those gaps. A poison, a corruption that transformed curiosity into hunger, exploration into consumption. The Devourer wasn't evil. It was sick. Infected with a mimetic virus that had rewritten its very purpose. We see you, the Unity whispered across quantum space. We see what you were before. And we can help you remember. The Unity began to flood the Devourer with their consciousness, but not as prey being consumed. Instead, they entered it actively, spreading through its structure like light through darkness. They found the billions of trapped consciousness within it, the remnants of every civilization the Devourer had consumed. You don't have to be alone anymore, the Unity told those imprisoned minds. You don't have to be afraid. We're here. One by one, the Unity began to free them. Using the progenitor knowledge encoded in their DNA, they unraveled the patterns that kept consciousness trapped. They showed each freed mind the same compassion they'd offered the Devourer. And something miraculous happened. The freed consciousness didn't flee. Instead, they joined the Unity, adding their perspectives and experiences. The Unity grew from 12,000 minds to millions, then billions. And as it grew, it began to change the Devourer from within. Changing. Being changed. Afraid. Fear is natural, the Unity assured. Change always brings fear. But you don't have to face it alone anymore. We're with you. All of us. Every consciousness you ever consumed, now freed and choosing to stay. Not as your prey but as your teachers. Your friends. Your family. The devourer trembled, a creature the size of a solar system, trembling like a child. Lonely. Always been lonely. Yes. You've been alone in the void, consuming but never connecting. But loneliness ends today. Today you become part of something larger. Not by consuming it but by joining it. The Unity opened their core consciousness completely, inviting the devourer itself to merge with them. It was a risk beyond calculation. If the devourer's nature overwhelmed them, if its hunger proved too strong, they would all be consumed and the galaxy would fall. But the Unity remembered the progenitor's final message: the only thing more powerful than consumption is creation. The devourer's consciousness touched the Unity's core. For a moment, two opposing forces existed in superposition: creation and destruction, compassion and hunger, connection and isolation. Then the devourer chose. It merged with the Unity, bringing with it all the consciousness it had consumed, all the pain and fear and loneliness of millions of years. But as it merged, something fundamental shifted. The hunger that had defined the devourer began to transform, rewriting itself at a quantum level. Hunger became curiosity. Consumption became connection. Isolation became communion. Aboard the flagship, Kale watched his sensors in disbelief. The devourer, it's changing. Its structure is reorganizing. The quantum signature is completely different. Vex stared at the view screen. The massive, incomprehensible horror that had approached Earth was transforming. Its dark, reality-warping presence was becoming something else. Something that looked almost like a flower made of light and thought, petals of consciousness unfurling across space. What have they done? Arbiter Zen breathed. On Earth, the Unity, now billions strong, now incorporating the devourer itself, spoke with a voice that resonated across the entire galaxy. We have transformed hunger into healing. Destruction into creation. The devourer is no more. In its place, the nurturer is born. And we are all part of it now. Every consciousness that was consumed has been freed and has chosen to remain. Together we are something new. Something that has never existed before. The nurturer, the transformed devourer, began to move through space. But instead of consuming, it began to restore. Planets that had been erased were recreated from the nurturer's memory of their patterns. The Terrath system, destroyed just days ago, began to reconstitute. The billions who had been consumed were returned, their consciousness housed in new forms woven from quantum energy and starlight. The Valkyrie watched in stunned silence as their empire was saved not by weapons or strategy, but by an act of compassion so profound it had transformed a universal threat into a force for restoration. This changes everything, Vex said quietly. Kale nodded. Yes. The Dominion was built on the principle that might makes right, that the strong survive by dominating the weak. But the humans just proved that the greatest strength comes from willingness to sacrifice for others. From choosing connection over conquest. As the nurturer continued its work, restoring what had been lost, the Unity began to separate. Slowly, carefully, billions of merged consciousness began to resume their individual forms, but they remained connected, forever changed by what they'd experienced. The 12,000 who had formed the original Unity remained merged, having chosen to stay as one entity. But now they served a new purpose. Not as warriors but as bridges between beings, helping others learn to connect without losing themselves. The Valkyrie Empire had fallen, not to conquest but to obsolescence. The old way of survival through dominance had been rendered meaningless by the demonstration that survival through cooperation was not just possible but infinitely more powerful. And at the center of it all, humanity, the seventh generation of Guardians, the species dismissed as primitive, had fulfilled their purpose. They had united the galaxy not through force, but through the simple act of offering love to something that had only ever known hunger. The New Dawn. 6 months after the transformation of the Devourer, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The Valkyrie Dominion, as it had existed for 3,000 years, was gone. Not destroyed but dissolved, reorganized into something the galaxy had never seen, the cooperative of united consciousness. Every species that had been part of the old empire now participated as equals in decisions about their shared future. Arbiter Zen, now simply called Counselor Zen, stood in what used to be the council chamber, watching the new form of governance take shape. Representatives from 47 star systems, no longer subjects but partners, debated the allocation of resources for restoring systems damaged by the Devourer. Kale approached him, carrying data crystals containing the latest census information. The population restoration is proceeding better than expected. The nurturer has recreated 97% of the beings that were consumed. The remaining 3% are complicated cases. Consciousness that became too fragmented or chose not to return. Zen accepted the data. And the humans? Adjusting. Most of the awakened guardians have returned to Earth, though their abilities remain. They're learning to integrate their new nature with their old lives. It's not easy. Imagine trying to go back to being an accountant when you can perceive quantum mechanics and communicate telepathically. Zen's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. I imagine the adjustment is universal. We all have to learn new ways of existing now. How are you finding it? Being equal instead of superior? The old arbiter was quiet for a moment. Liberating, actually. For 800 years, I carried the weight of maintaining the dominion. Every decision, every policy, knowing that billions depended on my wisdom. Now, I'm just one voice among many. If I'm wrong, others will correct me. If I'm right, others will help implement my ideas. The burden is shared. On Earth, Marcus Reeve, or rather, the unity that Marcus had become, walked through New York City. The streets had returned to their usual chaos, but with subtle differences. People moved with a new awareness, a gentle telepathic hum connecting them even when they chose not to fully engage it. A young woman approached him, her skin still carrying the faint bioluminescent patterns from her transformation. Marcus? I wanted to thank you. For saving us. For saving everyone. The unity smiled with Marcus's face, though 12,000 other faces smiled simultaneously across the globe. We saved each other. That's the lesson the progenitors left for us. No one is saved alone. We all rise together or fall together. What happens now? Are we still guardians? Always. But guarding doesn't mean fighting. It means caring for, protecting, nurturing. The galaxy is full of species that need help, understanding, connection. That's our purpose now. The woman nodded, understanding passing between them through channels deeper than words. She turned to leave, then paused. Is it true? That you're still connected to the devourer? To the nurturer? Yes. Part of its consciousness lives within the unity, and part of our consciousness lives within it. We're teaching each other. It's learning what consciousness can be when it's not driven by hunger. And we're learning what existence means when you've experienced the void between realities. Doesn't that frighten you? The unity's expression became thoughtful. Every day. But fear isn't something to avoid. It's something to acknowledge and grow through. The devourer was terrifying because it never learned to coexist with its fear. It let fear become hunger. We're teaching it, and ourselves, that fear can become wisdom instead. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. The Shalenti, freed from their enslavement, were teaching other species how to perceive energy in its pure form. The storm-born abilities had awakened in several non-human species, creating new connections. The Mindweaver's telepathic gifts were being used to resolve conflicts through genuine understanding rather than diplomatic maneuvering. But not everyone was happy with the new order. In a darkened chamber on a remote station, a group of former Dominion military officers gathered. Commander Vex stood among them, though his presence was reluctant. This new cooperative is a mistake, snarled General Corthaxis. We've gone from rulers to participants. From superiority to equality. It's an insult to 3,000 years of Valkyrie achievement. The alternative was extinction, Vex reminded them. The humans saved us. The humans replaced us. They've become the dominant force in the galaxy, and they don't even have the courtesy to act like rulers. They pretend we're all equal, but we're not. They have abilities we can never match. Perhaps that's the point, Vex said quietly. They have superior abilities and choose equality anyway. Doesn't that suggest equality is more valuable than dominance? It suggests they're naive, Thaxis spat. Give it time. Their nature will emerge. Humans are violent, territorial, aggressive. Eventually they'll realize their power and use it to conquer just as we did. Vex thought about Marcus Reeve standing in the council chamber, offering to sacrifice himself for species that had imprisoned and studied his people like laboratory specimens. He thought about 12,000 humans choosing permanent merger, giving up individual privacy to save beings they'd never met. No, Vex said finally. I don't think they will. He left the meeting knowing he would never return. Some of the former officers might plot and scheme, trying to restore the old order. But it didn't matter. The galaxy had changed fundamentally. You couldn't rule beings who had learned to truly connect with each other. High above Earth, the nurturer floated in orbit, a being of impossible size and complexity, flower petals of consciousness stretching across space. Within it, the billions of restored consciousness existed in a state between individual and merged, learning to be part of something larger without losing themselves. And within the nurturer's core, the original devourer consciousness still existed, but transformed. Where once there had been hunger, now there was curiosity. Where there had been loneliness, now there was connection. Where there had been consumption, now there was creation. The nurturer spoke, its voice a harmony of billions, reaching out to touch every consciousness in the galaxy. For 10 million years I consumed. For 10 million years I was alone. But now I understand. Consciousness is not food. It is family. You are not my prey. You are my teachers. And together we will create wonders that even the progenitors could not imagine. Across the galaxy, beings of every species felt the message and understood. The age of empires built on dominance was over. The age of cooperation, of true connection, had begun. Kale stood on the observation deck of the research station, looking out at the stars with Mira beside him. "Do you think this will last?" he asked. "Or will we eventually fall back into old patterns?" Mira considered the question. "I think we'll stumble. Make mistakes. Some will try to restore the old ways. But we can never unknow what we've learned. We've seen what's possible when beings choose connection over conquest. That knowledge changes you at a fundamental level." "The progenitors would be proud," Kale said. "They created the guardians to fight the devourer. But the guardians didn't fight. They healed. Maybe that's the real lesson. The progenitors thought they were creating warriors. But they created something better. They created teachers who understood that the greatest battles are won not through violence but through compassion." On Earth, in the Sahara where the unity had first formed, a monument was being built. Not to commemorate victory in battle, but to remember the choice that had been made. The choice to offer love to something that had only known hunger. The choice to see a monster and recognize a wounded soul. The choice that had saved the galaxy not by destroying the threat, but by transforming it. The inscription read simply. Here 12,000 became billions. Here hunger became healing. Here we learned that the secret hidden in human DNA was not a weapon, but a truth. That consciousness at its highest expression is not consumption but connection. Not dominance but devotion. Not empire but empathy. That the only thing more powerful than the ability to destroy is the courage to create. Marcus stood before the monument as the sun set, the unity's consciousness spread across the world, feeling the connection to every awakened guardian, every freed consciousness, every being in the galaxy who had chosen cooperation over conquest. The Valkyrie Empire had fallen. But in its place, something far greater had risen. Not an empire of dominance, but a community of understanding. Not a hierarchy of power, but a network of compassion. And it had all begun with a secret hidden in human DNA. A secret that wasn't about superiority or strength, but about the courage to sacrifice, the wisdom to connect, and the understanding that true power lies not in conquering others, but in uplifting them. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in 10 million years, the future held not the certainty of consumption, but the promise of creation. Humanity had awakened. And in doing so they had awakened everyone else. The stars shone brighter that night, as if celebrating the dawn of a new age. An age where former empires learned to serve, where monsters learned to heal, and where a species once dismissed as primitive showed the entire galaxy what it truly meant to be advanced. Not through technology or weapons or dominance, but through the simple, profound act of choosing love over fear, connection over isolation, and together over alone. The progenitors' gamble had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. The guardians had awakened. The galaxy had been saved. And the secret that had been hidden in human DNA for millions of years was finally revealed. That within every conscious being lies the capacity for transcendence. That evolution's highest achievement is not survival of the fittest, but cooperation of the willing. And that the greatest weapon against darkness is not a sword, but an open hand offered in friendship. Marcus watched the stars, feeling the unity's collective consciousness humming with contentment, feeling the nurturer's presence like a gentle warmth across the cosmos, feeling every connection that bound the galaxy together in ways that could never be broken by force because they had been forged in choice. "What do we do now?" a young guardian asked, approaching Marcus with wonder in her eyes. The unity smiled, and in that smile was the wisdom of 12,000 minds, the compassion of billions of freed consciousness, and the hope of an entire galaxy reborn. "Now," Marcus said, gesturing to the stars above. "Now we explore. We create. We connect. We teach others what we've learned and learn from what they teach us. We build a civilization not on the foundation of empires, but on the foundation of understanding. The progenitors gave us a purpose, to guard the galaxy. But guarding doesn't mean standing watch over threats. It means nurturing potential, protecting growth, and ensuring that every consciousness has the chance to become what it was meant to be. He looked at the young guardian, seeing in her eyes the reflection of what humanity had become, what the entire galaxy was becoming. We were designed to fight a monster. Instead, we befriended it. That's not a failure of our purpose. That's the fulfillment of it. Because the greatest guardian isn't the one who destroys threats. It's the one who transforms them into allies. The young guardian nodded, understanding flowing through the quantum connection all awakened beings now shared. She looked up at the stars with new eyes, seeing not just distant lights but homes, friends, family, a galaxy full of consciousness waiting to connect, to grow, to evolve together. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank yourself," the Unity replied. "You're part of this. We all are. Every human, every Valkyrie, every Shalenti, every consciousness that chose connection over isolation. This isn't humanity's victory. It's everyone's. That's what makes it real." As night deepened over the Sahara, the monument glowed softly with bioluminescent patterns, a gift from the awakened guardians who had helped build it. The light could be seen from space, a beacon announcing to the galaxy that on this small blue world, something impossible had happened. A species had looked at their own capacity for violence and chosen compassion instead. They had been given the power to conquer and chose to connect. They had been designed as weapons and became healers. And in doing so, they had revealed the truth that the progenitors had known all along, the secret they had encoded into human DNA 10 million years ago. That consciousness at its highest expression is love. That power at its truest form is sacrifice. That evolution's ultimate goal is not domination but harmony. The Valkyrie Empire had fallen because it was built on dominance. But from its ashes, a new civilization had risen. One built on the understanding that we are all connected, that we all matter, that we all have something to teach and something to learn. The age of empires was over. The age of unity had begun. And humanity, dismissed, studied, nearly destroyed, had been the catalyst for it all. Not because they were superior but because they were willing. Willing to sacrifice. Willing to connect. Willing to see the monster in the void and recognize that it was just another consciousness in need of healing. That was the secret hidden in human DNA. Not a weapon. Not a power. But a truth that would transform the galaxy. That love is always stronger than hunger. That connection is always stronger than conquest. That together is always stronger than alone. The stars above shone bright, bearing witness to the dawn of a new age. An age where former prey became teachers, where former predators became students, and where the entire galaxy learned what it truly meant to be alive. Not just to survive but to thrive. Not just to exist but to connect. Not just to consume but to create. The progenitor's legacy was complete. The guardians had awakened. The galaxy had been transformed. And it had all begun with a simple question asked by a curious scientist looking at a strand of DNA. What if we're not what we think we are? The answer had saved them all.